Imagine walking through your hometown, not just seeing old buildings, but hearing the voices behind them. The laughter in the plaza, the wisdom of your lolos and lolas, the stories behind each street's names. These are the heart of local and oral history. Good day, everyone, and have a blessed day. We are the Group 3, and today we'll be discussing local and oral history. We will take you through the important theories and concepts that shapes these fields and explore how we can better understand the past by looking at it through local and personal stories. Our discussion will cover the theories and concept of local and oral history, how to conduct interviews to gather stories and insights, the importance of educational tours to local historical and heritage sites, and also learning resources such as local museum, visits and documented vlogs or magazine films. But before we will dive all of that, I'd like to share a short story with you. This story, I recently read a book that highlights an experience with a local history. It is a story that perfectly captures why we need the value of our local past. Let me begin with by sharing it with you. This ito ang mga katagang ito. Sorry po, sorry po, sorry po. A history professor once visited Lokban, Quezon. While visiting around the old church compound, he saw five students, and he decided to test their knowledge. He asked them, "What is the name of the church?" The students looked confused, crunched awkwardly. They answered, "Sorry po, we don't know." The professor was disappointed. He said, "Your school is inside the campus. The your school, your s- your school is the campus of this church. Yet you don't know its name. That's sad." And and again, the student just replied, "Sorry po, sorry po, sorry po." This simple scene or ang pangyayaring ito reflects a real problem. Many of us don't know our local history. We often taught only national history, usually focused in Manila or major events in Luzon. But as Churchill once said, the study of local history provides the foundations and substance of the national history. This is exactly why we're here today, to understand and what local history is and why it plays a key role in understanding who we are as a Filipino. Once again, good day everyone. I am Melody Kanitagakanaw, and today I will be discussing about the local history, specifically focusing its theories and concept. So now, what is local history? Well, a local history is a study of the past experience by a specific community. It could be a town, a city, or province, or even a small group. And it includes their events, traditions, heroes, institutions, struggles, and achievements. But why does it matter? Well, it matters because local history provides an alternative perspective to the nation history. It highlights history from below, stories of ordinary people, and also strengthens community identity and pride. It remains as history is not it's not just about it reminds us class that history is not just about a big names, a big place, but also about the voices of the people around us, our elders, our families, and our hometowns. Now, let's proceed now to the theories and concept of local history. About this, we will talk about the key ideas that shapes how we study local history. So as what I am saying earlier, that history from below. It focuses on the experiences of ordinary people, not just a presidents or national heroes. It gives attention to farmers, workers, women, and other often ignored in history books. And also alternative narratives brings forward the stories that are often excluded from the mainstream history, such as stories from indigenous people, women, and local leaders. And this shows that there is not just about the one version of history, but many voices and angle was there. And and aside from that, it was a micro history. It is means that a detailed study of a small scale events or groups such as a barangay, a family, or a local events. Through this, it's even it's small. These stories provide rich insights into a larger historical patterns. And lastly, I know there are last and next is a local memory and identity. So history helps build a community identity. Always remember that through stories, landmarks, traditions, and shared memories. Knowing your own town, history builds a stronger sense of belonging. And lastly, the link between local and national history. Local history is not just a separation from national history. Also remember that. But local events often have a national-wide effects, and it's a vice versa. So, why should we need to study local history? Studying history through a local lens, when studying local history, we must remember to be professional and honest with our research, even if the data is limited. Also remember that. And next is to be fair and open-minded even if the story challenge our beliefs or kasalungat ito sa ating mga paniniwala. Next is that history is multifaceted. It includes places, people, different sides of every stories. Always remember that. So again, uh, again, local history is a study of the past experienced by a specific community. According to Church, Churchill, studying local history helps us better understand not just our hometown but our country as a whole. It empowers us to preserve our own identity, celebrate our own roots, and value the stories that shapes our community, our locality. When we document and appreciation our local history, we help to protect the nation's memory, one story at a time. That's all, everyone, for my discussion about local history. Next, we will dive into oral history, which will be discussed by Nicole Racaza. Once again, I am Magkantagakan now. Thank you for listening, everyone. Bye.
Thank you for that, Miss Melody Tagakanaw. Now we're bound to oral history and its concept and theories. Have you ever wondered what is oral history? So, oral history is a technique for generating and preserving original, historically interesting information, primary source material from personal recollections through planned recorded videos or interviews. This method of interviewing is used to preserve the voices, the memories, and the perspective of people in the history. So, oral history is a technique used to preserve first-hand accounts of past through recorded interviews. So, oral history is a valuable way to gather primary sources, materials not from books, but directly from the people, personal recollections. It emphasizes the methods, helps to preserve the voices, the memories, and the perspectives of individuals, especially those who may not have represented in written records. The goal is to give ordinary people a voice in history. So, the term oral history as attached to interviewing was first noted in 1940s by Joseph Gould when he went around Greenwich in New York City to write an oral history of our time. He wanted to record what ordinary people had to say as part of history. It was shift from the monarchy or ruler-centered prior histories that used written and official sources. Later on, Alan Devines and Louis Starr cemented oral history as subfield of historiography. By 1960s, it started to spread around the world, leading to 1987 International Oral History Association. Oral history is essential amid of scarcity in written sources, historical documents, and other material evidence. This method uses oral accounts of historical subjects, witness, and members of communities and the like. Oral history is primarily relies on memory. The informant will recount their experiences to the researcher as remember it. In other instances, the informant will relay what they learned from their ancestors or older members of the community of the historian. The nature and the definition of oral history cause positivist historians or those who subscribe to the belief that history should be primarily based on written documents to criticize the methods of oral history. Memory is seen something faulty and inaccurate. British historian A.G.P. Taylor even dismissed oral history as a old men drooling around their youth. At best, positive historians see oral accounts as a mere supplement to the history written from written documents, but leading oral history expert Donald A. Ritchie posted important questions regarding oral history. Now, in oral history, who is being interviewed? In early decades of conducting oral history, despite a shift from looking to the royalty of the other social class, the interviewees who were chosen were visible actors or eyewitness in the society, like the elected politicians, business executives, judges, publishers, and even civic leaders. It was in Europe that some were able to tap working class to share their experiences as a form of radical and demographic paradigm shifts by non-professional historians to recover the voice of ordinary people. In 1973, U.S. historian Shanghton Lin saw a colleague interviewing just released civil rights activists from there began the project Rank and File. Personal histories by working class organizers, historians began writing from the bottom up as a more and more historians engage in oral history alongside continually developing technologies. It became clear that oral history is an all-inclusive that the past is best understood by recording as many diverse interviews or members of a community as possible. Oral history is to include all, especially those who were previously excluded. That would be all. Thank you for listening. May I call on Ms. Giselle Rhea Ellen Amaga to continue our report about oral history.
So, thank you for that, Ms. Rakaza, and good afternoon to each and everyone, especially to you, Mom Parte. So, in continuation to what Ms. Rakaza have discussed about the important questions that an expert, Donald A. Ritchie, developed regarding oral history, we will also be knowing the answers of those questions as well. So, one of the important questions that have been included about the oral history is that how reliable is the information gathered by oral history? So, oral history, like written sources, it needs to go through source criticism. Interviews must be checked and compared with other sources so to see if they are accurate. So people might change their stories over time, but documents can be also wrong or biased, like during martial law. So both have limits, and it's interviewer's job to ask the right question and analyze carefully. So, uh, it is stated that oral history can be trusted, but we have to be more careful about it. Just because someone says something in an interview doesn't make it automatically true, but
Also, documents can lie to or fabricated, especially if they're made to protect those in power. So we need to compare interviews with other evidences. It's like being a detective. So ask more questions. Don't just believe everything, and always double check. So another question: does the fallibility of human memory limit oral history? So, um, memories are isn't always reliable, especially for older people. But during 2000s to 2010, there was a rush to interview World War II veterans before they passed. Some had strong memories and others didn't. But still, by comparing interviews, we can find patterns and shared truths. So, memory can help explain history, but it can also be misleading. So, that's why good interviewing skills are important. So, yes, people forget or mix up details, especially as they age. But that doesn't mean we threw away their stories. We just need to be smart enough to interview many people, compare what they say, and find what's common. Because memory can be tricky, but if we ask the right questions and check carefully, we can still learn a lot from it. So the last question, what does it take to become a local historian? So um, you don't need to have a history degree, though it helps. What's important is being trained in how to do interviews and having a real connection with the community. Sometimes non historians make better interviewers, like doctors talking to patients or workers talking to their workers, because there's a trust. Oral history helps tell the stories of poor or indigenous groups who aren't in written records. So you don't have to be a professional historian to do oral history. So what matters is that you care about the community and know how to ask good questions, because it is stated in the statement that sometimes regular people, even if they are not historians, can collect better stories because they understand people that they are talking to. Thus, oral history is powerful because it gives a voice to those who are often ignored in history books. So, again, oral history is a way to learn about the past by talking to people who lived through it. And it's not always perfect because people tend to forget things and remember them differently. But that doesn't mean it's useless. Because just like written records, there's a possibility that it can be biased or wrong. So stories as well needs to be carefully checked and compared with other facts. Put in mind that anyone who cares about their community and knows how to listen and ask questions can help keep these stories alive. And also, oral history is important because it shares voices that might otherwise be left out of history, especially from everyday people, the poor or indigenous groups. So that would be all. Thank you for listening, and now I'll hand it over to the next reporter. May I call Miss Manzano to discuss conducting interviews of before, during, and after.
Good day everyone, I am Keisha J. Manzano, and today I will be discussing an important method used in historical research. Interviewing is a vital tool in the historian's toolkit, especially when it comes to researching life histories, local histories, and oral accounts. It allows us to gather personal narratives and first-hand testimonies that are often not written in books or documents. However, interviewing is not as simple as just sitting down and asking questions. There are important steps and guidelines that must be followed to ensure the interview is effective, respectful, and valuable for research. Let's begin with what we should do before the interview. When you have decided about your research topic and identified who you will interview, it is important to have background information about your topic and your interviewer or respondent, because the more you know, the better the interview will be. For example, if you're asking a person who witnessed the EDSA revolution, it would be best to be familiar with the chronology of events relevant to those respondents saw. If you are interviewing a person about their life history, it would be best to know their background information in advance. And finding out the bigger picture enables you to craft proper questions and avoid those that could make your respondent hesitant to discuss. Write your interview questions in advance. Respondents would sometimes request a list of the questions before the interview so they could also prepare, so better be ready when such a request is made. If you were interviewing a person related to a historical event, it would be best also to have a chronological outline of relevant historical events so that you could also structure the interview and have cues at the ready. And these cues based on chronology will be helpful when the respondent drifts into random reminiscences. You can always clarify where in your timeline does this memory fit. Prepare the equipment and documentation that you will need. Today's smartphones usually come with voice recorders. You will also need consent and release forms templates of which are available on the internet. These are forms that prove you have conducted the interview. The respondent consented to be interviewed and that they agreed to be recorded. A release form is necessary if you intend to publish portions of the interview or post them online. Remember that the story you will get from your respondent is theirs. Even if after you conduct the interview, it is legally and ethically necessary that you secure a release permit before you publish your interview in whatever way. Make sure that the interview will be done in a quiet and safe space. If you were interviewing several respondents, insist on doing it one at a time, if possible, so that the information you will get will not be affected by the agreed upon version of reality between multiple individuals. Identify a location that is quiet and safe for your respondents, and inform your respondent in advance and verify with them 2 days before the interview so that you are sure that they remember and they will appear. With today's technology, it is also possible to do an online interview through the internet. This interview may be done through video or audio calls. The same preparation applies to this situation. If you can insist and if your respondent allows to have the interview with video, since it is easier to understand and it is more natural if you see the nonverbal cues of your respondent. Now let's move on to what to do during the interview. Remember that the interview is about the respondent and not about you as the interviewer. The respondent must do most of the talking and only occasionally guide them in the direction you deem most productive for your research. As much as possible, try not to interrupt nor break the concentration of your respondent as they talk. Always let them finish and only ask your next question when they have stopped talking. So make sure to appear interested and show this interest through nonverbal cues such as nodding. Signals like this indicate to the respondent that they are being listened to and that you are taking an interest in the information that you are receiving. Verbal encouragement could also be helpful, such as, "That is wonderful information," or "How interesting." Just be sure to be genuinely interested and allow them to finish before saying anything. Although you have a list of questions, do not be afraid to ask follow-up questions based on what your respondent shared. Build on what they say and clarify specific parts if there were things that were unclear to you. Once again, I am Keisha J. Manzano. Thank you for listening, and I hope this helps you appreciate the importance and process of interviewing as a research method.
Thank you so much, Keisha Manzano and Alameda Pistano. And I will be the one to continue to share about during and after the interview. And during the interview, while yes, your questions are essential, and identifying facts vary your line of questioning. And remember that you are not just after facts, you are also after the experiences. When introducing a new topic, try to start with a more general bigger question, then get as specific as you want as move along. And you can also initiate a new topic by saying something like, "Can you describe the situation?" or "Please tell me about the situation," to help your respondent's memory, to encourage them to share more openly rather than giving just only a brief answers. And the next one is be prepared to hear experiences that might be disturbing And if you are talking to someone about their experiences, says like a war veteran or who survived a war present or brutal integration, prepare to hear some gruesome details. And if they are start being emotional, and please let them assure them that it would be fine if they need to stop the interview. And if the respondents prefers not to discuss these certain topics, avoid the pursuing them. Instead, honor them the right to have a privacy. Another instance is when they're interviewing individuals who have gone through a traumatic event like a disaster survivors. And one that you need to observe when during the interviews is be mindful of the cues that your respondent is giving regarding the length of the interview. 1 to 2 hours is okay for the respondent, but anything longer might be too tiring for them already. And often a single setting is not enough to get all the information that you want or needed, so you can ask for another schedule if you feel there is a needed for it. And you should watch how long the interview was it, and because there will might be on the respondents will be getting tired, and if the respondents will be getting tired, there will be an instances that the respondents will not be answered correctly of your questions. Okay, so from now, let's move on to after the interview. Not long after you finish the interview, take that time to sit down and also focus and make some notes based on the interview that you've doing, and organize your thoughts and impressions. And it's all about keeping track of important details that you've did to the interview that could be useful later, especially for the future conversations or the interviews that you did. And this might also helps you to remember things that might be helpful down the road as well. Okay, and after the interview, make sure your recording is complete and audible. Well, it is a great practice to transcribe interviews in full if it's not easy, depending on how you will use your interview. And identifying snippets from the interview might be a more productive use of a time. And also, you need to make sure that you listen and record as soon as possible so that the content of the interview is fresh in your mind and you're still familiar with what was the discussed all about the respondents' answers and also the interview that you did. And finally, after the interview, remember that the information you get from the interview is the respondent's memory and also the experiences. It may be as accurate as they remember as the past, but it could also be clouded by their capacity to remember and their agenda. And also be informed and be critical of the information received and don't simply accept it is a historical fact that as historians consult multiple sources before interpreting past events. You should apply the same level of critical thinking when you're analyzing your interview. And that's the end of my report. Thank you for listening. Please let me know if you have any questions. And to wrap up, always think carefully about the information you get. Look at different sources and consider all angles to understand things better. Keep asking questions and learning as you go.
Good day, everyone. I am Janeliana from BSED Filipino 2-4. So today I am going to report the importance of educational tours for school students. So educational tours are a crucial components of the academic program because they give students the chance to learn outside of the classroom and get useful practical experience. There is a proverb that goes, I hear and I forget. I see and I remember. I do and I comprehend. So it refers to the idea that seeing something being done in a certain location helps people remember it better. So next is the reasons to opt for educational tours in school. So the first reason is it enhances knowledge and understanding. So educational trips provide students with a chance to learn about a particular place or subject in a more interactive and immersive way. So visiting a historical site or a museum helps students better understand the history and culture of a place. So second reason is promotes teamwork and social skills. So educational trips involve a group activities and require students to work together. So which helps them develop teamwork skills and social skills. So this is crucial for younger pupils because it fosters their confidence and self-worth. So next is the it encourages independent learning. So educational trips requires the students to be more self-directed and take ownership of their learning. So this helps students develop problem-solving skills and become more independent learners. And next reason is it promotes creativity and critical thinking. So through educational trips, students can think creatively and critically about the things they see and experience. So this helps them develop their critical thinking skills and become more innovative learners. And the last reason is it provides a break from the monotony of classroom learning. So educational trips give students a break from the traditional classroom setting and allow them to learn in a more fun and interactive way. So this helps them to keep engaged and motivated to learn. So, and next is some examples of educational tours for schools that might be included. So, first is the science and nature tours. So, these tours take students to museums, zoos, aquariums, or natural habitats to learn about various scientific concepts and the natural world. So, one of the example of this is the Cebu Safari and Adventure Park. Next example is historical tours. So these tours take students to historical landmarks and sites such as battlefields, museums, or cultural centers to learn about significant events in history and different cultures. So what example of these tours is maybe in Ancestral House, Yap San Diego Ancestral House, or the courtesy of Shutterstock in Parian. Next example is the art and cultural tours. So this kind of tours take students to art museums, galleries, or cultural centers to learn about different artistic styles and cultural traditions. So the example of this is the National Museum of the Philippines near the Plaza Independencia. And then the last example of tours is the community service tours. So these tours take students to location where they participate in community service projects and such as helping to rebuild homes or assisting with environmental conservation efforts. So example of this is visiting an orphanage or like for example voluntarily helping in planting trees. Next topic is the importance of educational tour. So first is exposure to new cultures and environments. So through educational tours, it can provide to students the opportunity to learn about different costumes, traditions, and ways of life in other countries or regions. So these tours are organized to focus on specific subjects such as the history, language, art, or science, or they can be more general in nature, allowing students to experience a wide range of cultural and educational activities. So, by participating in these educational tours, students can gain first-hand exposure to different cultures, historical sites, and natural landscapes. It helps them to broaden their understanding of the world and encourage them to think more critically about the world around them. And also, it can provide to students the opportunity to develop important skills such as independence, problem solving, and teamwork as they navigate unfamiliar environments and cultures. Next is it can be a hands-on learning experience because educational tours can incorporate interactive learning that can be a powerful tool for students to deepen their understanding of a subject or topic. So by actively participating in the learning process, students are more likely to retain information and develop critical thinking skills. So interactive learning also can be more engaging and enjoyable for students, making it a valuable addition to any educational tour. And next is it can develop as of social skills. So educational tours provide students with the opportunity to interact with their peers and adults. So in a new setting, So it can help them to develop their social skills and confidence. And next is it can improve communication skills. So through educational tours, students can communicate and collaborate with their peers and adults, helping them to improve their communication skills. And next is development of problem solving skills. So educational tours often involve challenges and unexpected situations. So these that require students to use their problem solving skills to find solutions. So next is enhancement of critical thinking skills. So through educational tours, it can encourage students to think critically about the information and experiences they are exposed to, helping them enhance their critical thinking skills. And next is increase motivation and engagement. So through educational tours, students can sense excitement and adventure, which can lead to increased motivation and engagement in learning. Next is the development of leadership skills. So it can provide students with the opportunity to take on leadership roles and responsibilities, helping to develop their leadership skills. And next is building of lifelong memories. So uh, educational tours can provide also an opportunity for students to build lifelong memories. These trips allow students to make new friends, bond with their classmates, and create memories that will stay with them for a lifetime. So educational tours are also valuable educational tool that helps students learn about the world and build lasting memories. And the next one is enhance academic performance. So, during educational tours, students are exposed to a variety of teaching philosophies and discover new perspectives on their fields of study. So, students return to the classroom with a deeper connection and greater motivation for their studies when they are able to see, touch, and smell the very things they have learned about in books. So my next topic is the things to consider when planning for an educational tour. So first thing is the budget. So it is really important to consider the cost of the educational tour and ensure that it is within the school's budget so that you can pay for the transportation and entrance fee in the tourist spot that you will visit. And the next one is the safety. So the safety of the students is the most top priority. So consider the safety measures in place at the destination, such as emergency procedures, transportation, and accommodations. And then the next one is the educational value. So the tour should offer opportunities for students to learn and engage with new experience. Consider the curriculum and how the tour aligns with it. So it is really important also to consider what place you are going to visit that can help students to learn. And next is the students' demographics. So take into consideration the needs and abilities of the students, including physical limitations, language barriers, and special needs. And next is teacher involvement. So you should also consider the role of the teacher on the tour and how they can contribute to the educational experience because the teacher is the one who will guide and help the students during the tour. So the next one is cultural sensitivity. So be mindful of cultural differences and respect local customs and traditions because we have different culture and traditions. So you should be mindful and respect that. And the next one is sustainability. So you should consider the environmental impact of the tour and choose destinations that prioritize sustainable practices. And the next one is students and parent involvement. So you should involve the students and parent in the planning process and encourage their input and feedback. And also length of the tour. So you should consider the length of the tour and whether it is feasible for the students and teacher. And lastly, the pre-tour preparation. So, should plan activities and materials for before and after of the tour to enhance the learning experience and provide context for the destination. Thank you, and that's all my topic. And the next reporter will be Miss Nina Erica Ramirez. She will be discussing the local heritage sites.
Okay, so now, before we talk about on what is the local heritage here in our place, let's know first on what is heritage. So heritage, it is what we have inherited from the past to value and enjoy in the present and to preserve and pass it on to the next future generations. So from the word inherited from the past, it means it is the cultural and historical legacy that we inherit from the previous generations. So those heritage from the past that have been passed on to the next generation provides us with the knowledge, values, and traditions that shapes our identity and guide us our actions as a Filipino. So heritage has three kinds. So first is the tangible, second is the natural, and third is the intangible. So first kind of heritage is the tangible heritage. So it includes the historical sites, buildings, monuments, objects in museums, artifacts, and archives. So from the word tangible, it refers to physical object. So meaning it is physically seen or noticed by the people, like the arts in museums. And second, the natural heritage. So it refers to the waterways, landscapes, woodlands, bogs, uplands, native wildlife, insects, plants, trees, birds, and animals. So natural heritage, it refers to the natural features or geological formations like mountains, caves, forests, coral reefs, and other natural things in the ecosystem. And the third kind of heritage is the intangible. So, intangible includes our costumes, sports, music, dance, folklore, crafts, skills, and traditions. So, intangible heritage refers to the traditions and practices. So, from the word traditions and practices, it includes oral traditions like folk tales and performing arts, and also social practices like kissing or blessing the hands of the elders, and also doing rituals. And last is festival events like sinulog. So now, let's proceed to the local heritage sites. So it is a place, buildings, landscapes, or object within a specific community that holds historical, cultural, or social significance to that area. So an example of a local heritage is here in Cebu, we have a famous tourist spot that always visited by any tourist, either international or a local tourist. So this heritage or this spot is the Basilica Minore del Santo Niño. So it is a famous oldest Roman Catholic church where the Batang Jesus is known for his miracles. So why is it important to choose the best local heritage sites? So it is important because it is vital for preserving a community's identity, and also in fostering a sense of belonging and promoting tourism and economic growth. And in choosing the best local heritage sites, it also serves as a physical reminders of the happenings in the past, and it offers us a valuable insights into the cultural, social, and economic history of the specific place. So that would be all in our topic. Thank you for listening. And now, I will give the presentation to the next reporters. May I call on Ms. Irish Alboras and Mr. Intinado to discuss the learning resources interacting history through historical shrines and museums, documentaries, and vlogs.
Good day everyone, I am Irish Albores, and for today's lesson in Readings in Philippine History last topic, I'll be presenting the topic Interacting History through Historical Shrines and Museums. These places serves not only as repositories of our past, but also as active learning spaces that allow us to connect more deeply with our nation's history and heritage. We are discussing ways to study the past through a variety of sources available to us. Historical shrines and museums serves as portals to our past, giving us a tangible connection to our history, culture, and national identity. Through these spaces, we don't just learn, we experience. For example, a visit to the Rizal Shrine in Calamba, Laguna will be more enriching if you're able to do a little reading about Jose Rizal's early life, allowing you to connect the space with real historical events and people. You'll see recreated rooms for his ancestral home, personal belongings. These artifacts help bring the story of Rizal's childhood life. That is why shrines and museums are considered important learning resources because they don't just display history, they help us engage with it on a more deeper and more personal level. These tangible objects are reconstructions of the past. Experiencing these artifacts directly is the best thing to actually being there when a particular event happened or when a historical personality lived there. These first-hand experiences make historical events more real for us, and research shows that learning by experiencing aids with retention of the learning later in life. Seeing artifacts and spaces firsthand makes history feel alive, making museums and shrines valuable learning resources that deepen our understanding beyond books. But one thing also take note that visiting a museum entails preparation. Upon arriving in the historical shrines or museum, one thing that you can do is to look for the historical markers. These markers put up the Historical Commission of the Philippines, or formerly National Historical Institute, or NHI, provide the basic details on what makes a certain site historical. These markers ensure that the site where it is located is indeed of historical and cultural value of the nation. That is why it is important to spend time reading captions, text accompanying the artifacts or exhibits in display. Some museums and shrines allow mobile photography and may even encourage you to take selfies while in the site. Take the opportunity to be able to retain more of the information being presented by their sites so that you may be guided once you will be able to write a paper required for your instructor or professor. Shrines and museums are a lot more interactive now, aided by available technology. Take the chance and participate in these interactive opportunities to history firsthand. Watch the videos, listen to the sounds, and enjoy the experiences. This is also a great chance to analyze the artifacts, since artifacts are also texts that are open for reading, interpretation, criticism, and evaluation. In conclusion, historical shrines and museums are not just places that store the past. They are living classrooms that allow us to interact with history in a meaningful and engaging way, preparing ourselves before the visit, paying attention to markers, participating in interactive displays, and reflecting on what we see. We make the most of these rich learning experiences. These sites gives us the chance to connect emotionally and intellectually with our heritage, making history not just something we read, but something we truly understand and remember. Let us continue to value to these spaces as essential learning resources that bring us our nation history to life. Again, I am Irish Albores, and you may now proceed watching Mr. Intinado's discussion about other learning resources such as documentaries and vlogs. Thank you for listening.
Good afternoon, everyone, especially to you, Ma'am Porte. I am Stefan Intinado. In this afternoon, I will be discussing the documentaries and vlogs and their importance in discovering the significant events in our past or our history. Interacting history through historical documentaries and vlogs. Now, let's start. Documentaries and vlogs are modern and accessible ways of learning about our history. Not everyone can physically visit the museum and shrine, but through the documentaries and vlogs, they can virtually bring those places into life. Documentaries and vlogs provide a visual and narrative storytelling that recreates the experience of being there in the place. Now, let's discuss the documentaries. Documentaries use archival footage, interviews, reenactments, and expert analysis. The best example of documentaries is the live video that Ma'am Portes sent to us. For example, the Yawa, Diwata ug ang Santo Niño, and the Lapu-Lapu and Bulakna. Why I can say it is the best example? Because there are experts in the documentaries that shares about their knowledge on the specific subjects that Ma'am Portes sent. Also, those documentaries showcase the beauty of all culture, like dance performance and wearing the traditional or indigenous attire. Because of documentaries, this make history feel alive, similar to how holding an artifact in a museum makes the past tangible. Now, let's discuss more examples about the documentaries. First is Jose Rizal, Ang Buhay ng Isang Bayani, produced by the National Commission for Culture and Arts, or NCCA. The second is World War II in the Philippines, NHCP Virtual Tour, produced by the National Historical Commission of the Philippines, or NHCP. Those two examples that I've said earlier are the best example of documentaries, and it is the best guide on how to write a documentary or what is inside in the documentaries. Now guys, let's move to vlogs. I know all of you know what is vlogs because it is rampant and blew up. And vlog guys, it is a documentation of a video or significant event that exists. Vlog is very useful as a learning resources because it brings a real life knowledge because of the video documentation. And the example of vlogs as a learning resources is Philippine Museum Tour, National Museum of Anthropology. The creator of this vlog is the Nerd Pilgrim, a student vlogger that shared their experience and learning during the museum visit. The second example of vlog is Museo ni Aguinaldo, Walkthrough and Tips. And the creator is Backpacking Philippines, a vlog featuring Emilio Aguinaldo's house filled with historical context and visitor advice. Those learning resources that we discuss is so important in discovering the significant events in our past or our history that exist and needs to be discovered. Thank you for watching and listening our discussion. That ends our discussion. Hope you learned something from our discussion. Goodbye.